Hi, this is Chris from the Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from Political Voices Network.
So now you generally get me all whipped up. Whipped up. We are, Veruca Salts of justice, and then Allison Gill talks me down off the wall. Yep. You're like trying to regulate my dog's medication to get their nails trimmed. You're like puppy uppers, doggy downers. I'm like, Ellie brings me down. And but, you make some realistic, just legal points. You said, my position has been that Trump will not be brought to trial before the RNC, at which point he'll be named as their nominee, and trying him becomes nearly impossible before the election. But Chutkan is doing the thing I thought no judge would, treating Trump as a normal citizen. You said, I still don't know if March 4th holds. The first trial date rarely holds, but even if 3-4 gets bumped to 5-4, that's still plenty of time to try and convict before the RNC in July. And Chutkan just doesn't seem inclined to grant the massive delays the defense is asking for. I mean, I think that's how thirsty we are for one system of justice, right? Where there's some version of bitch, please, no. This is when the trial date is, right?
Well, here's where I disagree with White Ellie. And I generally, I like Eli Honig. Ellie Honig is a good guy and a smart guy, and so I say White Ellie with love. But where I disagree with him on this particular issue is that Ellie is kind of suggesting that Chutkan is treating Trump differently because he's Trump, and I read it as Chutkan is treating Trump exactly the same as she would treat any other defendant. The DOJ's argument, just from the clip that you played of him earlier, the DOJ's argument is not like, oh, you were kind of on constructive notice that this was going to happen to you at some point. No, Chutkan's argument is that many of the documents that he needs to review are his own documents.
Thank you.
Are his own text messages, are his own filings that his own lawyers have already seen. So remember, the argument that the Trump defense team was going for was that we should extend this trial 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years into the future in order for them to have time to review all these documents. And Chuck has just straight up said, you're not going to get 2 years. That's a ridiculous timeline that they're pursuing. You get 2 years for a case when you've got, a giant, 1,000-person corporation with untold numbers of emails and relevant documents to go through. You don't get 2 years when the evidence of the case is largely on your own phone. Right? So that's what she's saying. And look, I think that with an indictment in the end of July, early August, with a trial date set for March, with a trial date set for 6-7 months away, put it like this: that's what a black defendant would get in the federal court system.
Right.
That is about the timeline that black people can expect in the federal court system.
Yeah.
Do white people usually get a little bit more time? Sure. So if all Chutkan is doing is kind of like right-sizing the timeline, regardless of race, let's say, I don't see how you can complain. Also, as I said in the tweet that you read, Stephanie, the first trial date often gets pushed anyway.
Yeah. Right.
And she is setting it up so that if they come back, in January, in February, look, Judge, we've done our best. We can't meet this aggressive trial date, if that's what they're going to argue. She can easily push it back a month, 2 months, and still get it done for the Republican National Convention in July.
Yeah,
and that's where I start to think that I was wrong, because I thought that basically that it would be set up so that you push it past the RNC, and then after the RNC, it becomes almost impossible to try the kind of major party nominee in a trial that could lead him in jail. But if she can get it done before the RNC, I think there is a legit chance that we have a trial and thus a conviction.
Yeah.
Before Trump is named the nominee at the Republican National Convention.
Yeah, although almost all of them raised their hand on the debate stage and said, yes, sure, convicted felon, fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, the Republican Party has debased itself completely in service to Donald Trump, and, there's nothing that we can do about that except for, pray for their eternal souls. However, I'll just put this. Remember that conventions are not set in stone, right? You do the votes and you got the delegates, but the delegates still have to show up in the hall and vote for the guy and do all the thing, right? And so I'm just going to throw out that while I do not have any faith in the modern Republican Party, we simply don't know what it looks like on, in July 17th in Milwaukee, if they are sitting there, if Trump has the votes to be nominated as a convicted felon. He won't be in jail by January 17th because he will get post-conviction, released on his own recognizance pending appeal. I'm sure he will get that because he is a 77-year-old first-time offender.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous to say, but like that's what he is, and that's probably how the system will treat him.
Although
so I don't think he's likely to be in jail.
Well, that's the other thing, though, is depends on when he's convicted of what, because then he is a convicted felon if he gets to the next the next trial, already convicted in the anyway. Well, you said
so. Like when you get to the RNC and he's a convicted felon, do those delegates are they still beholden to vote for Trump? Does Trump have enough votes by the time he gets the convention to win on the first ballot? And if he doesn't, does it go into some kind of deal? We just don't know all the permutations yet. So let's stick with what we do know and start with the process of holding him accountable and see what happens.
Yeah, you said I could move the goalposts and say he won't be jailed until after the election because he won't because of appeals. But I don't think he'd be. I didn't think he'd be brought to trial. And boy, howdy, Chutkin is trying to make me owe some dinners all across the country. Those are write-offs, Ellie. And you said I could still be right, but she's making me look wrong, gloriously wrong. I'll be the happiest wrong guy from the internet wearing a giant dunce cap on live television that you've ever seen next March. And I also am so impressed with Fani Willis. Like she's just like calling their bluff left and right.
Willis is also super ready to go in Georgia. Now, Georgia, by its nature, should take longer than what Smith is doing with Trump on January 6th. You've got 18 defendants as opposed to 1. You've got a RICO charge as opposed to obstruction. Those, by their nature, take a lot of time. You have a lot of opportunities for kind of legal gamesmanship where the defendants, Fani Willis wants to try the defendants jointly. That is standard in a RICO case. However, also standard in a RICO case is defendants filing notices of severability, saying, I don't want to be tried with this guy or that guy. That extends the timeline on a RICO case. So there are lots of things that the Trump's team can do or the MAGA team can do to delay accountability on that somewhat decently into the future. The problem is that they kind of have to be all on the same page, right? And the reason why RICO trials can get complicated is that when you are trying the mob, for instance, everybody does what the boss says to do, right? Everybody hires the lawyers that the boss says to hire. Like there's a structure, if you will, to this. When you look at MAGA, one of the things that's great about Donald Trump is that he is one disorganized dude, right? Like this is not Michael Corleone. This is Fredo Corleone trying to run the entire organization, right? So you already have like Sidney Powell, I want speedy trial. Well, if she wants speedy trial, and Fani Willis was totally on this, if she wants speedy trial, bam, that reduces her ability and potentially other defendants' ability to use various legal tricks to delay things. I'm not saying it's all gonna work, but again, Willis is entirely ready to have this 18-person RICO trial. Yep. Pretty much whenever the judge lets her. And she's also, I don't think Jack Smith drew a really good judge in D.C. I don't know yet, and I don't perceive that Willis has drawn a good judge in Georgia. She's drawn a new judge in Georgia.
Right. Yeah.
One who's inclined, I'm sure, to be pro-MAGA. But she's so far done a pretty good job of kind of helping the judge along to
while being respectful. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Here are some things that maybe you didn't quite know because you're kind of inexperienced about how the law sort of kind of works in Georgia. Like she's done that. She's been ready for that kind of stuff too, which I think speaks to her competence and ability to get this done. So look, it's not just that Trump's in trouble. One of the things that I said while I was on the Nation fundraising cruise, and when the news dropped in Georgia, was that as much as I am excited to see Trump go to jail, and I am excited to see Trump held accountable and potentially be convicted and go to prison, these other 18 people also need to get got.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
It is long past time for Giuliani to be on the wrong side of the V and feel what Giuliani time is like in reverse, my friend.
Thank you.
Like, it is long past time for the Kraken to get her just desserts. Just like Justice Clarence Thomas, if I am wrong,
yes,
I will have to start taking Nazi planes for my own security, because apparently being very wrong is now justification for Clarence Thomas to be on the graft from Harlan Crow. So just letting the viewers know that's my plan.
Oh, but wait, Elie, there's more. There are more excuses in this disclosure by Clarence Thomas. One time he had to fly in the private Nazi plane because of, quote, an unexpected ice storm. Not the movie, an actual ice storm. And then he also said after Roe v. Wade, he needed the extra increase. There was an increased security risk, which he also said he inadvertently admitted that information from previous disclosures. Your thoughts, Elie?
Oops! Like the idea that a person who's been on the Supreme Court for 31 years forgot to mention that he's been taking private vacations for free, just as an oops, simply strains credulity. Similarly, the idea that this man needs to take private planes because doing his job in the manner that he does it causes public outrage is also ridiculous. The ice storm thing, look, I think we would all like to, get out of our Southwest, chains and hop on a private plane every time they cancel a flight. But obviously, if we were doing that in a public position, we would have to disclose it. So, look, Thomas, remember, Stephanie, Thomas needed extra time on his financial disclosures to do this. So what actually happened was that he was once again planning to not tell the public about all of this graft, but ProPublica blew him up so completely that he needed extra time to go back and re-add these disclosures. He's the most corrupt Supreme Court justice that we know of in American history. Like in the entire history of the country that we know of, he is the most openly corrupt. Hopefully at some point somebody in power decides to do something about that.
Oh, hi, I'm here with sexy liberal John Fugelsang wearing my Los Angeles sexy liberal shirt. Oh my God, we have an LA show coming up October 21st, but how else could you see it, John?
How else could you see it? I'm so glad you asked. For a limited time, you can see the show live via pay-per-view if you go to sexyliberal.com. All the laughs, you'll miss nothing.
I can stream it from all around the world?
All around the world, in your car, while you're driving. Watch it at home.
Sexyliberal.com, yeah.